Welcome to Bulls, Bears, and Bill, a weekly show on the financial markets brought to you by Dalton Community TV and Bill Schmick of Onota Partners. And I'm Barbara Schmick, also of Onota Partners. Each week, Bill will share with us why the markets did what they did and where they're going in the weeks and months ahead. Stocks, bonds, options, commodities, currencies, crypto, you name it, it's Bill's world. Bill spends his days in front of several computer screens, digesting world events, checking both foreign and domestic markets, trading up a storm, while figuring out how the latest post from hundreds of sources will impact markets. Bill has been trading and investing in global markets for many years. He has worked for decades on Wall Street for some of the largest and well-known firms in the country. He has traveled the world several times over, advised some of the greatest names in the business, and witnessed many of the events that have shaped markets today. Bill has also been an investment advisor, managing individual clients' money and advising them on all sorts of financial issues, from retirement and estate planning to affording health care to putting their kids through school. In his spare time, he writes 2 columns a week for several media and newspaper organizations throughout the country. Locally, you can read his columns in the Berkshire Eagle and on iBerkshires.com. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you, Barbara. And good morning. It is Monday. When I left, the markets were, I guess you would say, flat. The NASDAQ was up a little. I think the S&P was even. And the Russell and the Dow were down a little bit. And the interesting thing is that if you've noticed or not, that the weekend was filled with stories and saber rattling about Venezuela. Okay, that, by the way, is going to be the topic of my column this week. So I'd like you to pay attention, because I'll tell you what Donald Trump is really after, and it's not fentanyl. Now, before I get started, please send your questions, whatever they may be, including what you're going to get for Christmas, to daltonctv@gmail.com. Again, daltonctv@gmail.com. So, what's going on?
Ready, Bill?
Sure.
All right. I think a lot's going on. So, the shutdown is over, yay, and the market sells off. Am I missing something?
The only thing you're missing is the old adage, sell on the news. Buy on the rumor, sell on the news. Now, we started to get information that the shutdown may be over on the Friday before the Wednesday, okay, that it finally did open. So we had Friday and Saturday and Sunday, Monday and Tuesday to buy up the market, so that when it actually did reopen, the traders sold on the news. And that happens more time than you might imagine in the stock market. Now, sometimes it happens because of leaked information, and I think we've covered that maybe 2 weeks ago, in which that's prevalent. In this case, we knew it was going to open up, and therefore it did, and we sold out. So it was a pretty rugged week last week. I think the NASDAQ lost maybe 4%, and the S&P 500 index probably 2 or 3%, and the Dow something similar. And if you've been reading my columns and listening to me, I had warned viewers to be cautious in the coming weeks, and I'm expecting as much as a 4 to 6% pullback in the S&P 500 index, which is the benchmark index, and even more than that in NASDAQ. So anyway, so here we are in the second week in November. Yes, And so far, it isn't lived up to its seasonal potential, which is, as I have told you in the past, that November and December are supposedly the best months of the year for the stock market. But this year, as I think I mentioned, things have been turned on their head between the tariffs, the immigration policies, on and on. Seasonality is not that strong compared to all the new events that are hitting the market, even as we speak. Venezuela is simply the one that we're dealing with this weekend.
This morning.
This
Before
morning.
this afternoon.
Yes, yes.
It's kind of hard to catch up with everything that's going on. So does the government reopening mean that Wall Street will begin to get more economic data now?
Yes. I think I wrote in my column, there's a whole list of things that they'll be getting this week, or may be getting. We're not sure.
You did. Would you like me
Yes,
to read
please.
them? So it says, and this was from last week,
Yeah,
Okay.
Friday's column.
it says the consumer and producer price indexes, average hourly earnings, average weekly earnings, factory orders, durable goods, retail sales, housing starts, building permits, and the most important number of all, the non-farm payrolls report, are expected to be announced on Friday. The markets are worried.
Yes, that's a long, long list, and I caution readers and viewers to pay attention to those numbers. Wall Street's on edge because we haven't had macroeconomic data from the government for weeks. And so we've been operating in sort of the dark, and whether good or for bad, these numbers are going to come out this week, and they could either send the market higher or lower, where no one knows. And the interesting thing is that when you look at those numbers, I realized something that I didn't know. The consumer price index, if we get it this week, supposedly measures the prices consumers pay for all their goods and services. So I've been taking that number as it is. And by the way, I think that number in the next 2 months, the CPI is actually going to see a decrease in the index rather than, as Wall Street believes, it will tick up. And the reason why I see that decrease is energy. Energy prices have fallen fairly steeply in the last couple of months. And as you probably can imagine, energy, oil, gas, everything, there is so many products, so many industries that use energy that when the price of energy falls, prices of everything else fall with it. So it's a big inflation indicator. But the other thing that I discovered was the consumer price index itself. Now, I was taking a look at what comprised that index, and I was shocked at what is no longer included in this index that tells you and I what the inflation rate is. Barbara, do you have what I wrote down?
Look, I have it right here.
Okay. What are the things that are excluded now from your CPI?
It's pretty amazing. So, the government has removed some of the worst inflationary components, including meat, coffee, new cars, trucks, and motorcycles, as well as long-term care and vehicle insurance, electricity, natural gas, and energy services. Wow.
Hello?
Wow.
What's left? So if you have been wondering, okay, while your inflation rate, when you're living your life day to day, is far higher than the government's consumer price index inflation, now you know. How'd this happen? Well, first of all, it was the Biden administration. They X'd out without telling anybody, or a lot of these different products. Now, Donald Trump, who was, as you know, since he came in January, has been claiming that inflation is dead, all except beef. But the rest of inflation is going down, and what he always talks about, he doesn't talk about any specific item except energy. Okay? And I just told you that energy is going down. Beyond energy, forget about it. Everything is going through the roof. And finally, we are starting to get the administration to admit that their tariff policies has actually increased the price of things like beef, bananas, coffee, things that I've written about in my columns ever since January. And so, if you've caught up the news last week, what the plan is that they are going to start dropping tariffs that weren't supposed to have any impact on prices. Okay? And they've just backtracked on all of that and said that yes, prices have an impact on the consumer, and so therefore they're dropping tariffs on food items across the board. It only made sense. How could you? We don't grow so many different things like bananas, okay, or hardly any coffee. The only coffee we grow in the United States, I think, is in Hawaii. And that's a minor little amount. So what did he expect by putting tariffs on coffee? My God. Anyway, enough of that.
So you mentioned beef, bananas, and coffee. Suddenly the Trump administration is making deals with some countries to reduce tariffs on those items. Why are they backtracking, and what's next on the list?
Okay, so here's the reason. Why are they backtracking? I don't want to get political, okay? But affordability, as you and I know, is just crushing us, okay? And in the recent elections, I think it was for 2 governors in 2 states and a mayor at least, plus a lot of other little elections across the country, affordability was the key driver for who won and who lost, okay? And it just so happened that the Democrats won because they were smart enough to dwell on affordability. I don't care whether we're talking about health or food or cars or electricity or whatever else. Affordability has become a real problem in this country, and I believe that in the midterm elections it's going to decide who's going to win. And I think that what has happened is after the elections, the Republicans have realized that affordability is their Achilles heel. And thus, the president came out with this cut in certain tariffs across the board, hoping that by allowing countries to import more items that cause our affordability to continue to go up, that by reducing them in the months ahead, that this crisis of affordability will be alleviated. But at the same time, I'm sorry, how can that be? Because if I look at what's going on, I'll just pick 2 items. Both have to do, one has to do with SNAP benefits, okay? That was the old food stamps, all right? Over the last, during the shutdown, when the SNAP benefits were not being given, okay, the country was up in arms, and we're talking millions and millions of people that depend on these SNAP benefits for food. It is expensive. It's $8 billion a month. And regardless of your politics, there's an enormous number of voters, okay, that get SNAP benefits, Democrats and Republicans. All right, so now supposedly with the government reopening, the SNAP benefits are coming back. What no one told anyone was that the Republicans' last bill, okay, the big beautiful bill, is going to cut a lot of the people who are getting SNAP benefits, okay? So affordability for those people is going straight through the roof. Number two, the Democrats had fought during the shutdown and lost that the insurance premiums for Obamacare that are scheduled to go higher in the end of the year, they fought for the tax credits to reduce those insurance premiums to be extended at least a year. That didn't happen. Okay. Now, supposedly there's going to be a vote sometime in December whether that extension is going to occur or not. As it stands right now, most Republicans are not going to vote for it. If they're not going to vote for it, it's not going to happen. So guess what? Starting January 1, talking about affordability, okay, by January the 1st, those insurance premiums for many millions and millions of Americans who also happen to be voters, who also happen to care about affordability, are going to get hit between the eyes with a 100% increase in their insurance premiums monthly. So, on one hand, we have some tariffs that are going to come off on some food, but that'll be months before that actually these importers can rev up the imports to America. So there's going to be a delay. This Christmas, I believe, is going to see higher and higher prices. And so this affordability issue is probably going to still be a major source of contention going into the midterms.
Okay. You wrote that where NVIDIA goes, so goes the market. What does that mean?
NVIDIA, which is the AI king of kings, that is artificial intelligence, is reporting earnings on Wednesday. Now, the last I looked, 91% of traders and analysts out there and professional managers were expecting NVIDIA on Wednesday to beat earnings estimates once again. Okay? And they have done so for the last couple of quarters, so that's probably made NVIDIA the king of kings. And it is also the company where all of the companies in AI are kind of connected and spread out across the globe, because AI makes the chip, the semiconductor chip, that is critical to advancement of artificial intelligence. All right. When we started this this broadcast, we talked about buy the rumor, sell the news. NVIDIA is almost at its top. I think its top is $205 a share, and we're trading around 190, 195 now. Remember the buy on the rumor, sell on the news? We have a risk on Wednesday that occurs with the case of NVIDIA. A lot of artificial intelligence stocks over the last 2 weeks have come down drastically in price. Sort of the bloom has gone off the rose, at least in the short term, for AI stocks. And here we have the king of kings. So I would pay a lot of attention on Wednesday. I certainly expect, like everyone else, for NVIDIA's earnings to beat, and they'll do their best to guide all the analysts on Wall Street for even better earnings and results in the future. It could happen. I really don't know the answer. I don't have any axe to grind. I'm just going to say, just watch the sell on the news kind of trigger that might occur. And if it does, since NVIDIA is all things artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence is what's driven the market higher and higher and higher and higher, that one false step and down we go.
Okay, so this is my favorite question about Thanksgiving dinner. The column that you wrote
Yes.
was probably a surprise to many people, but not me, people who know Bill, that you really did pay only 67 cents a pound for your turkey.
I did. Yes, I did. In Thanksgiving this year, by the way, is it's one of the few areas where they expect the cost of the Thanksgiving meal to decline. Okay. Now, it's interesting because you have to be, in order to have that occur, you have to be a pretty savvy shopper. And I am. Okay. The point is this, that if you stick with the store brands of products, you'll do all right. As long as you don't put beef or eggs on the menu. Now, most of us are it's turkey or ham anyway, so we're fine, but some people are tired of both or don't like both. I would steer away from those two sources of protein. That's going to up your prices to the point where if you just buy national brand items rather than the store brand items, your cost goes from $80 to $100. So that's a fairly large increase. But there are some items, for example, frozen vegetables, in which the store brands may not be as cheap as the national brands because the national brands are fighting to stay in the run for your Thanksgiving dollar. And turkeys, yes, turkeys are going to go down quite a bit this year. Now, for me, and this is, you might think it's crazy, but I'm on my second frozen turkey. I bought one last week, another one here at the same price, 67 cents a pound, and 20-pound turkeys. Well, what happened? Why do I have two? I mean, it's just the two of us. My dog. Here's what I figured out. He gets a can of wet 12-ounce dog food. The average price of that is about $2.40, 47 cents. Okay? Now, think about it. He gets a can of $2.47, not even a pound, not even a full pound of dog food, $2.47. And on this side is turkey at 67 cents a pound. And he loves it. So what do? I roast the turkey as I'm writing my column. Takes about 2.5 hours. Ding, it's out of the oven. What I do is I chop it up into little pieces when I have time. Put it in plastic bags and freeze it. Okay? Well, much cheaper than the dog food I could get. And as far as we're concerned, I like turkey. I don't like a lot of turkey, but some. And Barbara, all she likes is the drumsticks.
Drumsticks and
The dark
meat,
meat, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll chop that up and I'll save that in the freezer and I'll just either make soup or whatever with it. And that's the tale. So anyway, I'm sure you're not going to do it, but that's what I do with my turkeys.
And our poodle is very happy for it.
Yes, he is. The poodle is very happy. So what I would say about the remainder of this week is I see continued volatility in the markets. Now, volatility is a word that many people use to say down. And I'm not saying volatility is all down. Volatility can be up or down, but it's big up, big down. And it could come in the same day, the next day, 2 days, whatever. So that's what I see occurring. So I would be very careful if I were you in buying the dips, okay, in this kind of treacherous environment. And as I said, I'm still looking for a 4 to 6% decline overall. We may get it this week, we may get it next week, before Thanksgiving, and maybe that'll be over. And for long-term investors, just don't look at your account, okay? Focus on going and buying 67-cent turkeys. And so, till next week, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill. And I think next week there's no show, if I'm right. So we wanted to wish everybody a happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.